All right, so we're going to show you stuff that we think still looking really, really good. It still has good foliage. Remember, we're coming up to where we're going to start rolling things on. We'll communicate that with you, but that's coming up pretty quick here, probably in a couple weeks. So anything with leaf issues, all that, we're just going to start rolling the current. But for at least all next week for sure, and probably into the beginning of the week after, we'll still continue to ship stuff that looks really good as far as leaves go. And then if we have a little rough issue, we'll put it on the landscape grade, so at least you have an option. So grass adagio, you can see here, it's still turning on. Great looking size, great looking crop, nice heavy threes. It's kind of an open plume. You can see a little bit of it starting in there. But we got 570 ready to go. Gracilis, a little bit different animal, taller. It's going to have a bigger plume, but you can see here, if you really look down inside of it, the plumes are in there. But they plume almost about the same time as their foliage will start to go down and start to go dormant. So they're going to be sending up plumes anytime here, but they still have not plumed yet. And we got some good numbers there, really good sizing on it. So. Hydrangea, Limelight Prime. So this one here, Limelight Prime, they did a little more breeding with it. You can see here, it has a thicker stem. The stem's actually darker. And it tends not to, Limelight can flop a little bit. It's just such a heavy, vigorous grower. But this one here, they did a little bit of breeding to keep it a little more compact. Not really compact, but sturdier, let's say sturdier. We really don't have Limelights right now that look really good. But the Limelight Prime continues to perform very well through the late season here. And you can see there we got some sporadic blooms in there, and we got a couple thousand. So that would be my choice for the next couple of weeks, if you could steer them towards the Limelight Prime. We want to keep talking about the ilex. So Magical Berry, this photo was taken when, Cheryl? Yesterday. So you can see there we're starting to get color. I think when we showed you these last week, they were a little more greenish on the berry. You can see there now we're going to get color, and those berries will turn bright, bright red. And then the leaves will start to fade and fall off. And here in about, probably it's going to take about 4 to 5 weeks to get most of the leaves off. You'll be left with these stems with these nice, big, bright red berries. So remember, we have a whole host of them. We showed you those last week. Matt talked about what we're doing. We really, this is the whole reason for growing this thing. This is the time of year to really push sales on it. So we really need to be talking about it. I've driven the groups. I also looked at the crops at Avon. They've gone through and graded them to make sure that we have berries. So remember, if they really want good heavy berry set, they have to have a male counterpart. So, make sure you talk about, do they need males? I understand they might not bring a male in if they're just selling them as a Christmas type item, but or a late fall item. But if they're going to be planted out, lined out, it's important to have a male very close by. It's Manservia type hollies. The pollinators can really carry that pollen a very long way. To create that, the verticillatas, they don't seem to be pollinated as well by bees. They're more other types of insects can help with pollination, but mostly it's wind driven. So they have to be very close to a male. So consider that. So malice, we got a couple here. Crab apples. So you can see here, this is Scalocarpa. 7 gallons, 60-inch. We're past that 60-inch mark. Very tight, kind of narrow head there, and in a 7-gallon, real nice package, nice sized tree. We got 925 of those, and then raindrops. A little bit different animal. It gets a little bit whiter head, but it has that nice foliage on it. The more purple foliage. And you know, it's another good flower with berries on it. As it gets a little bit older, it'll definitely load up with berries. We have 795 of these. So just remember, we do have a 7-gallon tree program up here now. That's something we haven't had in the past. So don't just look at the long road inventory and think that that's all we got. We have trees at Huron. They're on the Huron codes. Obviously, we have the fruit tree program, which we talked about. And then we have small utility trees like crab apples, all the way up to big shade trees like the plane trees. So there you go. Pisces abies pendula. So going to show you a few field items. So we got 3 different sizes to choose from. So you got some 60s, 72s, and 84s. Really seems like the abies types are the hottest sellers. You can see there we don't have a huge amount of them. We definitely have more blues out there than we do greens. We had a good run on the abies last year, so just want to show you here. This is what we have on the pendulas. This is it. So not huge numbers. So if you got people that really have to have them, they better get them secured for the fall. Pungent's Fat Albert. So go to that one. You can see here we got some great looking Fat Alberts. We also have baby blues out there, very similar to it. And then also, we're not showing you here, but pay very close attention to B grade. We do have B grade again. So these are all, you know, regular grade, A grade, really nice, skirted full to the bottom, ready to go. B grade might have a little hole in it, probably a little bit crooked, but it is growing straight. You can't really see the crook until you tie the plant up. B grade would be is a fantastic deal for, utility trees, planted for borders, things like that. And even you can get by with them too as a specimen if you're not too worried. They'll eventually fill in. But if your customer's looking for, cookie cutter, has to be perfect on the lot, absolutely no defects, stay away from the B grade. But if you got landscapers doing direct installs, those are the guys that would love you because there's a significant price difference and they could take advantage of that and get a plant way cheaper, but still a nice viable plant. So that's how that's all going. Pinus parviflora glauca. So this one is probably the most misunderstood one we grow in a pine. It's a very open grower. We try to trim it to try to get it a little more denser. So we do a lot of trimming, but it's a very layered open grower, bluish green needles. It's got a really cool purple cone when the cone comes out, and then the cone turns, brown as it goes on. So it's got a lot of different interesting points throughout the year. But you can see here they're pretty full for a parviflora glauca. Most of what I see are competition shipping. You see it is way thinner than what these are. So we do some extra trimming to try to keep them thicker and fuller. And you can see there we got 60s and 72s. All right, Spirea candy corn. So we're still in the candy corn business. So the guys did a great job with the next crop. It's hot. The only thing that's keeping this plant going like this is heat. It loves heat. I think I've talked about this a lot. It needs a lot of heat. If people are bringing them in to store them, I would suggest that they be in some kind of minimal heat environment. This plant doesn't particularly like to freeze in a container. Once it's in the ground, it will do fine, but the warmer it gets, the better it looks. It usually is really a lot more showier in like southern Ohio regions below Columbus. When you get up in here into our ranges or further north, it's fine. It's not going to die in the landscape, but it's not going to show off as much. The whole thing with a lot of its breeding was so they can have a spirea that perform really well in the south and can handle heat. But the way it's been going this year, some of the spirea have gotten tired from that August heat. Candy corn, you can see here, is just thriving. Where last year we had a little bit cooler periods, and you know, we were struggling to get our numbers up, but they didn't perform as well as they're doing this year. So they had a little bit smaller leaf, but more heat, bigger leaf, more color. So, but really good plant. Just consider that for if they're bringing it in for winter storage. And Thuja Green Giant. So you guys have been picking these up. I think from the amount that you're shipping, I think you're excited about them. So we want to keep that excitement going. We still have over 1,800 at this size, at this heavy 72-inch. And then we'll have more. We'll have 60s we can rely on. But once these 72s are out, you know, they'll be out. And then we got plenty of 60s. The 60s will be nice and heavy. I just can't quite call them a 72. So, you know, if people really like it, really want it, they need to take them, because, you know, I don't know how many will be left from spring. My anticipation is you'll probably book most of these out this fall if the shipping continues. So, and that would be good for us. Once you get into this size, it gets very difficult to hold it much longer in that container, as you can imagine. This heavy of plant in a 15-gallon container, it's going to get harder and harder to take care of. Right now is the sweet spot. Let's get them out. Let's get them sold. Let's get them in the ground. So everybody's happy. All right. So we are able to dig next week on pines and spruce. So make sure you're communicating that to Mark. We're still looking at probably right there around the 1st of October or so, before we can start digging arbs and hemlock and things like that. It's still fairly dry out there. We'll probably do a little bit of watering if we have to dig next week. Arbs are still growing like crazy, so and hemlock are still putting on a little finish flush. So we tend to stay away from those two things, just to let them get as big as they can. And they dig so much better and transplant so much better if they start going more dormant. They can handle transplant shock just way better. So that's where we are with B&B.